This lesson will go over the properties of kites and how to use those properties to find missing angle measures. The definition of a kite is it is a quadrilateral with two distinct pairs of congruent adjacent sides. The idea that it's a quadrilateral means that it has four sides. It has two distinct pairs of congruent, notice the word adjacent, meaning next to. So looking at our kite down here, adjacent. These sides are the congruent. The idea of distinct is that they're clear. And we also have a second pair of distinct adjacent sides. So these are congruent. So two pairs of consecutive congruent sides, and it says no opposite sides are congruent because if it had opposite sides congruent, it'd be a parallelogram, and kites are not parallelograms. Let me kind of bring you back to this diagram I had several days ago. So we have all of these are quadrilaterals. We have the parallelogram family, we have the trapezoid family, and then kites are kind of over here in their class on their own. So they have no pairs of parallel sides. All right, talking about the properties. Their diagonals are perpendicular, meaning that they form that 90-degree angle. We have one pair of opposite angles congruent, and the pair of opposite angles congruent are these. Angle D is congruent to angle B. It says, oops, I think that needs to go down here. So angle D is congruent to angle B. One diagonal bisects one pair of opposite angles. So what that is going to show is that angle A is being cut and angle C is being cut. But if you look at my markings, angle A is not congruent to angle C. The only congruent angles we have here are B and D. And if I want to kind of show you this real quick, if you think about coloring these shapes in, you have two distinct triangles. So you have these triangles, the green one and the blue one. Think about folding them over this line of reflection, which would be this AC. The D and the B would match up. A would fold over on top of itself, and C would fold over on top of itself. But A and C are not congruent to each other. So that takes care of, I want to make sure I'm kind of checking these off. We've talked about the adjacent sides being congruent, the diagonals are perpendicular, the one pair of opposite angles, that the diagonal bisects one pair of opposite angles, and that one diagonal is bisected by another. If you notice, you have one long diagonal and you have one short, you have one short diagonal. The short diagonal is being cut by the long diagonal. So I can say that D, I think that's E underneath, is congruent to EB. Think about the idea of reflecting on top of itself, but the long diagonal is not cut in half as this top is visibly shorter than that spot down there at the bottom. All right, it says find the measure of the number angles. So we know that it's a kite because of the distinct markings of the two consecutive or adjacent sides. Because it's a kite, I know that the diagonals form a 90 degree, so the measure of angle 2 is 90 degrees. Let's see here. If this angle over here is 40, think about the idea of reflecting. Let me get a color. That this triangle right here is going to be equal to this triangle over here. Think about folding on top of itself. So if this is 40, this is also 40. That's 90. We know that in a triangle, the angles sum up to 180. So I have 40 minus 90. I'm sorry, 40 plus 90, subtract it from 180, is going to give us the measure of angle 3 up here, which is 50. So if this is 50, then this is also 50. Similarly, if we look at the triangle that's formed down here at the bottom, this one down here, we have that the 23 is marked. We know that if we fold it across its line, that the 23 matches the 23 over here, that this is 90 degrees. Triangle, so this orange triangle or yellow, whatever that color is, if I do 180 minus 90 minus 23, I'm going to get angle 1, which is 67. It didn't ask for it, but this angle over here is the same measurement as well. So the measure of angle 1 is equal to 67. This next one says, find the value of x and y. It's a kite because of the markings, the two distinct sets of congruent sides. So this is that long diagonal. So this angle and this angle are your ones that are going to be congruent. 3x plus 5 equals 4x minus 30. Think about why you know they're congruent. Let me go back to that crayon feature here. That if I were to take this top angle, this top triangle up here, and fold it over onto this other one down here, think about these as being congruent triangles. We have a side, and this reflexive property, so side, side, side. So by CP, CT, C, corresponding parts of congruent triangles, these angles are congruent. So we have one equation there that we can set up and solve, minus 3x minus 3x. If I add the 30 and add the 30, x is equal to 35. So that would be, what, 70, 110. And so this angle would be 110 as well. And then what is it showing me is a 2y minus 20? I believe it's this angle here. So this angle here must also be 2y minus 20 because that diagonal is cutting these non-congruent angles. Oops, let me mark these with a double as this single has already been used. And then I know that this angle down here has been cut and this angle down here has been cut. So this angle must also be angle y. So you can look either in the red triangle or in the green one, but I have a y. I have the 2y minus 20, and that 110 we found equals 180. Or if you want to, add up all four and set them equal to 360, but I think that's a little bit more work. So I have 3y equals, when I combine those, 3y, when I combine these, I get a positive. Is it a positive 90? Is equal 180. So when I subtract it from both sides, I get 3y equals 90. Divide by y equals 30. So when I plug this in over here, 2 times 30 is 60. 60 minus 20 is 40. And this is 30. So the 30 plus the 40 plus the 110, that whole triangle equals 180. So there's only 2 examples. Do the best you can with what you've got, but the idea here is that we're just working with congruent triangles. If that helps you at all, otherwise you're kind of marking your diagrams to see what's congruent and what's not. Do the best you can. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much.